Action more than words. The strongest imperative that emerged from the one-day economic forum organized by former UWI principal and Caroni Central MP Dr. Tewarie, as he brought together a cross-section of operatives to deal with serious issues affecting the society and to offer workable solutions for a more sustainable nation. A mixture of minds from both theory and practical environments, from a paradigm shift in industrial relations to prescriptions for a successful business and economic plan, and the role of parenting as a critical nexus to sustainable development, espoused by author-advocate Marsha Riley as she broached the subject in the context of nation building.
It is no secret that a society is as strong as its family unit, and as stated earlier, a reduction in incidences of abuse would lead to a reduction in our health bill, a reduction in expenses due to the members of our population involved in risky behavior, an increase in overall academic performance, all of which are indicators of a socially sustainable country. The million-dollar question, however, is how? How do we improve the family unit? How do we tell parents how to parent? How do we reduce the level of abuse we see daily at the hands of our parents? The answer is simple, but its execution will require long-term commitment and determination. It will also require each and every one of us to face our own demons and to stop marginalizing bad parenting to hotspots. Today, I would like to propose to you 2 ideas that will assist in putting us on the path to sustainable development. The first is parenting reform through the Parenting for Rewards program. Many parents admittedly do not spend enough time with their children. Not that they don't want to, but the demands of the day simply do not allow it. In fact, 90% of the mothers that I have personally mentored have all expressed interest in staying at home and raising their children if afforded the opportunity. At the Children's Authority, they admit that single-parent homes are more at risk due to lack of emotional support for parents and inadequate and affordable childcare services. Many parents work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. They then have to find time and energy to clean the house, cook food, and ensure general household responsibilities are done. It's quite reasonable to say we can understand why the game of catch isn't done at the end of the day, homework isn't supervised, or let alone, just extra revision. Picture a point system, just like a credit card. The more you use it, the more points you are rewarded. Let's create a credit card system for parents. I get points for attending PTA meetings, more points for having my family volunteer in the community, even more if my children have full punctuality and attendance, and then some if their grades are on point. Let us bring all the technocrats together and work out the items that would create the most effective parent and award points for taking such action. Those points, just like a credit card, can then be redeemed for groceries, books, utilities, and with a little collaboration, we can even include extras like coupons at food chains, hardwares, or even toy stores. That way, the next time I need to earn extra income, I don't have to choose work over parenting. I can literally make parenting my job. There are enough studies and evidence to show that the lack of supervision, they will lead the average child to delinquent behavior. High levels of absenteeism, poor grades, school dropout, and possibly entrance to a gang in search of a male role model. I recently came across a website for battered women, and the first thing that jumped out at me was the job placement feature of the home. I shook my head. Helping at-risk women find jobs is a clear sign that we fail to understand the root cause of the so-called delinquent behavior we are experiencing in schools. This very noble gesture, unfortunately, contributes to the cycle. Mothers are forced to leave their children for most of the day just to earn an income that most times cannot allow them to substitute their presence with top-notch caregivers and after-school activities. It is my belief that women in at-risk communities be taught more trade and business. Teach them to sew, cater, and tap into their creativity. Show them how to develop a solid business plan and help them turn ideas into thriving home businesses. Help mothers work from home so that they can be more involved in raising their children. It is time to change the conversation. It is time to make entrepreneurship more natural.
Dr. Roger Hussain would follow with jabs at what he called some failed policies initiated and sustained by respective regimes, wallowing in a perilous journey of handouts from unsustainable revenues, using abundance to make a mess.
We contracted capital expenditures at a time in 2008 when the economy was crying out and saying, listen, I am overheated. We need to expand the physical infrastructural space in which we operate. We contracted it. A lot of the interventions we made were in almost the exact opposite of what good practice, logical theory would suggest. And nobody went to jail. No, I cannot, well, one of the people responsible is now dead. I can't take anybody to court. It is sad. I take these things extremely seriously. I understand it in a great intimate way, and yet still it goes on.
He said once the intercept of economic activity changes, it creates further challenges, noting that while the Trinidad and Tobago situation is influenced externally, the negative economic growth rate is significantly on account of indigenous policy errors that will seriously impact further investments in human capital.
GATE had its roots in dollar for dollar, which started off with 50% funding for all students. It moved quickly to GATE as trains 1, 2, and 3 came on stream, and GATE in the original format is dollar for dollar plus a means test. And then it moved to what we call GATE now, which I call GATE Gas Windfall, in which in the midst of train 4 coming on stream in December the 5th, 2005, madness in the economy. And it just became full funding for whether you are doing geography, POB, literature, history, art, whatever. And to make it work, we had to simultaneously introduce a catch-all, a white-collar CPEP program called OJT at that point in time, to catch all the people who couldn't find employment in alignment with the demands of a rapidly growing economy. So it was chaos right or wrong. Policy error 1, led to policy error 2, led to policy error 3, and so on. But all of that went unnoticed amidst an amalgam of $90 billion in rents. Very, very bad management. And it is well known that the returns to tertiary level education accrues to the individual. I wanted to do economics, you wanted to, Dr. Tewarie wanted to do literature. You know, we chose the fields we wanted to go into and we benefited. And therefore, some part of the cost of tertiary level education we should pay for ourselves. But let it be equitable. Let the system be one in which all receive tertiary level education at the point of entering university, but you pay for it back in full amount, providing your income crosses a minimum threshold once graduating. It is the most sustainable mechanism for an economy such as ours with rapidly depleting energy sector reserves. And again, the current strategy has made a basic error in that if it is you are selling tomatoes to a crowd of 20 people, and after a period of a year, the crowd diminishes to 14, then your target market now becomes 14. And even further, if it is you were to increase price to that 14, instead of selling to 14 people, you will now sell to probably about 11. So the 11 to 20, which is the optimal market size, represents a gap in the university in terms of enrollment once you raise prices. And as per unit enrollment falls, with overhead costs remaining the same, it means that the cost of running the university rises. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make rational, technical sense.
And this will get increasingly worse if the current and succeeding governments fail to apply sensible fiscal management strategies of the country's Heritage and Stabilization Fund.
Let the Heritage and Stabilization Fund grow in size and use some proportion of the interest that comes out of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, much akin to the strategy used in Botswana, Norway, and Chile to help run the economy. Perhaps that on God's face might never happen, but it is the recommendation at this point in time with rapidly depleting reserves to help enhance the stock of savings. And it would also have the benefit of introducing a type of fiscal, institutional input in the economy, in that we need to run this economy closer to the fiscal revenues from the non-energy sector for the long-term period to have sustainable attributes. Otherwise, the debt level is just going to continue to mount as fiscal balances rise.
To overcome today's challenges and successfully navigate tomorrow's economy, Dr. Hussain suggested that Trinidad and Tobago must be careful how it funds consumption patterns and what its political managers do to realize the desired breakthrough in economic sustainability.
Enough is enough. I think that if we really want to have a breakthrough, let us put our money where our mouth is. Now, I fall out all the time with government ministers. I have a tendency to say exactly what I think once I can defend it technically. So this is me here going back to basic economic theory. So you have come into power, and I think you did not understand the state of the economy in the first 2 years. I think regardless of how much Article 4 was available, IMF Article 4, regardless of how much central bank data was available, I don't think the homework was done. So if it is you lost that window of the first 2 years to make change, the next best time is now. Set a 120 days, which is really September, October, November, December. It might be a little more than 120. Set a 120-day plan for some things to hit the nation with, to rebuild that confidence in the economy we need. Now, this is not exhaustive. I really drafted some of this up coming in the car this morning. But it is something that we are going to need to push. The economy needs this competitious change, a type of creative destruction. Let us start now. Let us, just as Roger marched on Friday, let us lobby and push for this change in policy intervention that could create growth. One, lowering the murder rate. No business person, and I myself practice some small-scale business, would rationally intervene to augment domestic capital investment in an environment in which the crime level is drifting close to 500. No small-scale business person where a bandit could walk up in the night and tell you hello would do that. They wouldn't. So we are squeezing domestic investment. We are compromising the pace at which the aggregate supply curve could shift rightwards by virtue of the murder rate. And we need a 120-day plan. Otherwise, these 25% taxes we pay and the value of the taxes we pay is not making us comfortable. We need a 120-day plan. And just as we march for the issues associated with labor, this to me should be a very much a front burner issue. Give us a 120-day plan, and in the process of doing that, bring the murder rate down to half the level it is now. And then beyond that, we take it even lower.
Following Roger Hussain was a self-proclaimed city academic in Gregory Aboud, who, in very simple language and with little time, tendered what he called the reality of Trinidad and Tobago's situation, taking his cue from his version of injustice.
What is injustice? Is it that I have a car parked outside that will take me home at the end of the day, and another man has no automobile? Is that injustice? I think the injustice is that I have a car that will take me home, and if the rain falls, he will have to wait 3 or 4, 5 or 6 hours for PTSC bus. That is an injustice, in my opinion. What is the injustice? That I could go to St. Clair Medical and have an ultrasound, or that the man who has to go and sit at Port of Spain General is being told to come back in March for his ultrasound. Where's the injustice? The injustice is that we are not delivering any service to the citizens of this country. And that service includes the management of our resources. That service is connecting us to the outcome. Let us go back, Dr. Hussein. I mean, you spoke about the 90 billion and the this and that. Let us go back to the fact that we used to have a train system in our country. And according to my parents and grandparents, there would be 2,500 people waiting right there where you call City Gate today, in what was the train terminus. And when the train left, the station was completely empty. One train would leave the station, Dr. Enel, and we shut down the train and ripped up the tracks.
The consequences we see every day on the roads of Trinidad and Tobago, but the Doma president went on to lay blame at the hands of the 1962 Independence Constitution, premised on better tomorrows for the citizen. But clearly, he said, the framers got it wrong.
At independence, I think the promise was that we would all have a chance. And I think that what happened at independence is that we became a society in which the regime of the day and their friends can say, now is our chance. And that really is the dichotomy that attracts my attention. Giving everybody in the country a chance, as opposed to running a society under a model of management and governance that gives only those who support the government of the day a chance. Thank you very much, and God bless our nation.
His wish would be fueled by aspirations of trade unionist Nirvan Maharaj, who's advocating constitutional reform which would work better for the common folk.
The ordinary man is not totally concerned with the theoretical concepts of sustainable development and of economic enhancement, you know. At the end of the day, the ordinary man is concerned about bread and butter issues. And how do we deal with that as a society? What can we do? The first point I want to make, and I will be very quick, is that we need to change the education system. Our history must not be selective. We must teach the history of this country to let our young understand that every segment of this society would have contributed to the development of Trinidad and Tobago. Because if we don't, as we did not, you would be surprised to know that our history is dictated to us by Jamaica and Barbados. We teach a generic history of the Caribbean, and we say nothing about the history of Trinidad and Tobago and how our country was shaped and molded. And the point is, we are fundamentally different to the other Caribbean islands because of the nature of our social stratification. And we have to know that. We have to bridge that disconnect between our people who are Trinidadian but disconnected from that which is Trinidad and Tobago. We are mimic men, it seems. I also believe, most sincerely, that we need constitutional reform.
Liaquat Ali of the Couva Chamber came to the podium piloting his plans for a domestic airport in Couva, citing historical problems with the air bridge to and from the sister isle. A terminal at Camden, he contends, will be efficiently operated by the private sector and will save the economy much needed foreign exchange.
When we look at domestic tourism and we look at international tourism, we in Trinidad and Tobago can't afford to fix our domestic tourism right, and we're trying to attract international tourism. And I'm coming to that point. Yes, we build in sandals in Tobago. But it's very difficult to get on an aircraft in Trinidad and Tobago, in Trinidad to reach Tobago, at no point in time. It's always, you look at the ferry service, look at the air and sea bridge in Trinidad and Tobago right now. You can't reach the Tobago where you want to spend your local dollars. We at the Couva Point Lisas Chamber of Commerce would have identified the use of Camden Airstrip to be developed into a local domestic terminal to be run by the private sector. We already have, at the Couva Point Research Center, we already have people lining up there to invest, to have this thing moving as fast as possible, right? And you know what you're going to do there? We are asking the government, we would have initiated discussion on the previous administration for Camden. We are saying to the government, you're subsidizing the airfare to Tobago with Caribbean Airlines. When we develop this plan to go forward with the domestic terminal between Couva and Tobago, we're saying here what? It's going to be a win-win situation. We're not asking for 100% subsidized on the air ticket. We could run an effective transportation service with a reduced subsidy, but which means you're going to pay a lot more for your ticket, probably $100 more. People don't mind. Now, the records will show you that the majority of the people traveling to Tobago come south of the Caroni River. And what's going to happen? You're going to have a lot more people traveling to Tobago, a lot more business spin-off within the area. Yes, I'm batting for Couva, right? We want Camden, right? But we're going to keep our scarce foreign exchange home right immediately. Nobody would want to hop in a plane and go to Margarita. Nobody would want to go to Club St. Lucia or Barbados. Club St. Lucia probably, mine is too long time now, right? But these are some of the things, you need small things, little things that we could save the country leak of foreign exchange.
Crime was inescapable in the discussion, and NATOC's Christopher Street proposed an all-hands-on-deck approach, since the scourge affects the whole gamut of Trinbagonian society.
We need to ask ourselves a very serious question. Are we going to continue to be passive observers of the flourishing crime situation in our beloved country? Are we going to continue to hope and pray that it fixes itself? When would we finally accept that this scourge on our society would only be effectively combated with a united national effort?
Industrial relations specialist Dr. Jamil Broom opened by saying that employers are stuck in archaic labor laws and accused government of being the biggest abuser and exploiter of workers. He provided a clinical analysis of the unconstitutionality of labor laws, suggesting that Trinidad and Tobago may have been operating with a fake system for quite some time.
One of the things that I have discovered in my research is that the current system is unconstitutional. Now, in that light, there are two systems currently running alongside each other. That is the individual climate and the collective climate. They are not supposed to run alongside each other. So what we need is not just an industrial court.
He's proposing the setting up of industrial relations tribunals to augment the work of the industrial court, so that workers can represent themselves without the intervention of trade unions.
Now, this is going to be unpopular because, of course, trade unions see this as an attempt to destabilize them and to reduce their numbers. However, Section 71 of the Industrial Relations Act says that a worker has a choice to choose whether or not to join a trade union or to abstain from joining a trade union. However, the current system forces a worker, contrary to the act itself, to join a trade union in order to take up a trade dispute. That is craziness.
But the crazy and infectious reality check would come from Avenel Hector Joseph, founder of the NGO ITNAC, whose Salt of the Earth thesis ignited the packed auditorium as she mixed social injustice with structured personal upbringing.
Today is rather interesting because when I heard Mr. Aboud speak, I was really challenged and I felt good. You know, we know the talk going around about the 1% and the 99%. And it's good that him being of that 1%, whatever that is, can identify with the realities of what people like myself face, whether we are 99% or we are 40% or whatever. We find ourselves in this society where we are told that we all come to the table with an equal access to the plate. And if we will all be honest, which we need to be as a society, if we need to address things to go forward, that does not exist. Because when one man can get a loan about 3 times to start an airline business from the banks in Trinidad and Tobago, and when I make a bad loan for $10,000, I am blacklisted. No pun intended. You cannot try to pee on my head, tell me it's raining, and say that this society is equitable. People are trying to solve problems that they don't understand. And, I suggested to one government, we do something called a groundswell. I will never forget when one particular key person of a party, I won't call name, when they lost the elections, the goodly gentleman said, we were really shocked that we lost. Because up to the Saturday before elections, I'm like, really? We've been complaining that we didn't like things you all were doing and you didn't realize? How do we engage our people? How do we empower NGOs like myself to really make an impact, to add, to bring value to society? When I go to Haiti for less than $500 US, I can literally give medicine to 100 people a day and give them good medical care. And in a society like Trinidad and Tobago, we don't even have beds in the hospital. Billions and billions and billions of dollars. Thank God I could beg my husband to sacrifice and pay admin, otherwise I'll be dead a million times over. You understand what I'm trying to say? But that's not a reality. Because you see that $500 admin that my husband is paying for me, it has some single mothers after they pay rent. They don't have that. And this lady addressed it. I tell you something. These young guys are going up in society, and no, we cannot say that poverty and crime goes together directly. Yes, because my brother here and we grew up very poor, okay? We didn't resort to crime, but that's because our mother was able to give us that strong sense that one day, we will be able to make a contribution. One day I hope to be Prime Minister of this blessed country.
Franca Costello and Richard Lewis offered business perspectives, one suggesting that TTMA members take advantage of exports, the other identifying specific actions that will propel growth and productivity in the sector.
Manufacturing is vital to global trade, which is based on goods and not services. The WTO estimates that global trade in regions is dominated by 80% goods and 20% services. In Trinidad, in 2014, our manufacturing output was estimated at $1.2 billion US. And TTMA estimates that 65% of that was exported. But if we are to be serious US dollar net earners, and I think we all agree that we do need to, we need to increase our export capacity. Luckily, Trinidad is ideally situated to take advantage of 2 key markets, CARICOM and Latin America, both which represent 16 million and 1 billion population base. So through negotiated preferential trade agreements with Latin America, most notably Panama, Guatemala, El Salvador, Dominican Republic, and Cuba, Trinidad has an immense opportunity not only to inspire local entrepreneurs to invest in manufacturing, but to have an advantageous position of inviting international investors.
In other words, what decisions can we take in the present to build a winning position for the future? And I'll quickly tell you that there are a number of things written on this topic, and I'll go through them very quickly, but there are more or less 6 steps that people say if you follow them, you have a good chance of success in its rethinking of the entire future. Rethinking principles, that means looking again at the principles that guide our organizations, societies, and personal lives. 2, rethinking competition. This deals with the fundamental challenges taking place in the very nature of competition. Rethinking controls and complexity, concerned with how to structure and manage our organizations for the future. Rethinking leadership, big topic for Trinidad and Tobago. Helps us to see leadership in a new light. It points out why the true source of power in the future organization will be that meaningful sense of purpose, and why the new generation of leaders will need to produce exactly that. Rethinking markets, examining major changes in nature of the customer, and lastly, rethinking the world. It's about unprecedented changes which are taking place in business and society at the most global level.
for sustainable
Forum convener and feature speaker, Dr. Tewarie, spoke about the road to recovery for sustainable development. He was emphatic that the present governance model leaves much to be desired and advanced some reasons for this political malady.
There is no confidence in the economy today because there is no clear economic direction and there is a total absence of priorities. And the reason there is no trust is because there is no sincerity in politics.
He said home ownership, land distribution, and squatter regularization are a few critical issues which must be part of any economic recovery initiative.
We must use construction to get out of the recession now. Housing construction and infrastructure projects are the key. We need to facilitate public-private partnership in these areas, as well as to add private investment to government funding.
He placed emphasis on the burgeoning crime rate, which he claims has become an industry in Trinidad and Tobago.
Another issue is the evident immersion of a criminal class in the fabric of our society. These are perhaps linked, some of them, to established business, actively involved in security operations and in debt collections. They are perhaps protected by the police, I don't know. Perhaps politicians also protect them.
Contentious though it may be in some quarters, the Caroni Central parliamentarian had some pointed suggestions.
There has to be consistent, persistent action on lockdown of hotspots, community policing with effective presence and backup capability, and reducing targets for crime for each station properly resourced. Safe zones have to be identified and supported.
The former planning minister ended his speech with a strong philosophical conviction.
We need to focus on issues, not personalities, on ideas, not controversies, on the future we want to create for our children and grandchildren, not the next election, on solutions, not just problems.
Now that the conversations have begun, it is the intent of forum organizers to take the discussions throughout Trinidad and Tobago, engaging the people and empowering communities in liberal thought and action.